What is going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about what is the best way to progress with calisthenics and building muscle as a vegan with Mark. Mark is someone who I kind of randomly met through my social media. He follows me. He also makes some noise when I talk about masculinity. So he got me to check his account, and the guy is crazy strong. He's got very good physique. He's shredded. He does weighted muscle ups, and he's a champion in some street lifting competition, which he's going to present himself. Is coming. He just requested. Hopefully you can also do a sound check. Just say sound is good in the comments. And as we go live, remember that questions are welcomed as well. Here he is. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. You right? Good. You right?
Yeah, man. Can you hear me well? Is there an echo, or is it clean?
No, it's good. You hear me okay?
Yeah, man. So Mark, I don't know too much about you. All I know that you're super strong and you're vegan. And
yes, so are you.
So that's why you got my attention, because I know that your training approach is definitely elite, and that got you to the results you have. So to give us an introduction of yourself, just tell us a bit about yourself. When did you go vegan as well? So how long have you been vegan? And I don't know if you're a coach as well, or you're just an athlete, but you definitely have some competitions you have participated in, both calisthenics and powerlifting. So yeah, give us an introduction.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mark. Strong to be useful. I've been training for about 12 years in total. I've been vegan for nearly 5 years. Started out just training for something to do, like just to feel more comfortable with myself, really. Probably like why a lot of us start. And then kind of got into powerlifting. I was just training in the gym one day, and I'd done a lot of research into training, and I was doing deadlifts and stuff, and got a chance with this old guy in the gym one day, and he was basically a previous British powerlifting champion and Olympic weightlifting champion. Was just chatting to me, just saying like, oh, your form's quite good, you've got good potential. And then he offered to coach me, basically, in powerlifting. So kind of took off from there. Hang on, I've got a bit of an echo. I don't know if you could change that.
Yeah, I think it's me just going to change, and it should be fine then.
Yeah. So I got into powerlifting, did that for a few years. Made some pretty good progress, got to like national level, won a few comps, then kind of had a bit of a break on and off. And then when lockdown hit in the UK...
Tell us some numbers. So what are your lifts that you got up to in these competitions?
So my best ever in powerlifting squat was 263, because it was a record in the federation as well. It's like an odd number. I did a 157 bench in comp, a 180 bench in the gym, and a 290 deadlifting comp. Then during, like I said, I got to like lockdown in the UK 2020, and was kind of limited on what I could do. Started to get into calisthenics, started training at home. All I had was rings and a couple of kettlebells. So I was like in the garden, setting up the rings on a tree, just learning different pull-up variations.
Wait a second, I think we need to process that, because 180 kilogram of bench pressing 290 deadlifts. So these are crazy numbers. So these are very good numbers. And flex your bicep for us.
My biceps is like my weakest muscle, yeah. It's like my weakest muscle. Forearms, maybe. Forearms is all right, but
forearms are huge, man. But I wanna highlight the fact to the people that are listening that you see, like, he's got great muscle, but his strength is crazy, right? So do you agree that what the key part of having a more muscular body is being strong and getting stronger?
For the most part, for 90% of people, yeah. And especially if you're natural, yeah. Like, the two are so interrelated. You can't really have one without the other. Like, it will depend on, your genetics and your muscle insertions and all that crap. But for the most part, yeah, you tend to get stronger, especially if you're focusing on getting stronger into more of that hypertrophy rep range. You're likely going to grow as a result of that. It's pretty simple stuff. People want to overcomplicate it, but it's pretty simple stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also, to add, I think it's important to focus on strength more than like the hypertrophy range, even though that's important. But I'm saying this because I think that if you are strong, then it's easy to increase the volume after. So let's say, doing a more hypertrophy volume will get you to build a little bit more muscle because it's more specific to hypertrophy. But if you're focusing on getting stronger, then it's going to be easier to increase the volume, right?
Absolutely.
Does it make sense to you?
Absolutely. If you're, I don't know, if you're benching like 180 kilos, then you're going to be doing sets of 10s with like 140. You're doing sets of 10s with 140. You're probably going to build your chest. You're going to build your shoulders. If you don't have that good strength base, and I think a lot of new lifters kind of miss out on that time. They just focus straight into hypertrophy, straight into pro bodybuilding training when you should really build a very good strength base first. If you're only doing sets of 10 with 60 kilos, you're not going to build as much muscle than if you have that really solid strength foundation. Even if your goal is at the end hypertrophy and you're not bothered about strength, still having a really good strength foundation, I think, is really beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it's, especially with calisthenics, because maybe with weights, it's a bit easier to stay within the 8 to 12 rep range and making progress with the weight over time, because you can add small amount of weight. But with calisthenics, it's difficult to do that little adjustment on the intensity, right? So if you go from pull-up to pull-ups in L-sit, is like adding 10 kilograms, right? That's all together. So, and when you do that, it's difficult to match this high number of repetitions. You will have to get down and be into a more strength-focused amount of repetitions. And therefore, especially with calisthenics, it makes sense to have that lower rep range stimulus in order for you to speed up your progress in strength. And then for the rest of the workout, you can be more focused on hypertrophy and work at lower intensity and higher volume. So you told us about your crazy powerlifting strength, but let's validate also your calisthenic strength. So tell us what you've been achieving. What have you been achieving there too?
So I'd always done like pull-ups and dips and things in my training just because they're just good general strength hypertrophy exercises. The whole time I was powerlifting. So then when I started focusing purely on that, like I had an okay base, but it was like my technique and my mobility was a bit dodgy. I needed to like spend a lot of time on that, and I still need to spend a lot of time on that. That's still, ongoing. But yeah, that's when I started focusing on muscle ups, on front levers, on one arm pull ups, on all the planche variations, handstand variations, those kind of things. And then, what was it, like the year before, last year, I found a competition that they started running in the UK called Body Strong. And I think it started in Europe, actually, because I saw some crazy Russian dude doing some ridiculous numbers on YouTube. And then I saw that they started it in, some Russian dude in it. And then I saw that it started in the UK. And at the event, it suited my strengths very well. So it was like weighted bar muscle up, weighted pull up, weighted dip, and back squat, powerlifting style. And like my squat was always my best lift. So I was like, that suits me well. So I'm going to go for it and just see how I do. So yeah, it was just 1 rep max, pick the highest weight that you've achieved in each of those lifts, add them together for a combined total, highest total wins. So the first one I did was in December, was like a regional qualifier kind of thing. And I did, 17 kilo muscle up. I did a 62 kilo weighted pull up, 100 kilo dip, and a 230 squat. Right, and I was pretty happy with their numbers, like the first kind of this type of competition. So like that was cool. But I felt like I had more in me on the day. Like everything went kind of easy. Ended up winning like my weight class. I was happy. Like that's cool. I was under 87 kilos, because the weight class is a bit different to powerlifting. Qualified me for a national one, and then I just competed in that national one like 2 months ago in middle of June, and managed to improve my numbers quite a bit. I managed a 27 kilo muscle up, 77 kilo weighted chin up this time, 120 kilo dip, and a 240 back squat, and again smashed it, won my class. So yeah, went really well. Like it's great
stuff. Good stuff, man. Like if I have to compare your numbers to mine, like I understand how you're able to do a 1-arm pull up, and why does it feel so far away for now to me, because I think my max pull up right now, because we are similar body weight, I think, like you are, how much do you weigh?
Similar sort of development, right? I'm about 90 kilos now. I mean, I compete a bit lighter than that as I've gained a bit of weight since, because I'm not trying to stay shredded all the time. It's crazy, but I'm about 90, like 5'10".
90 kilograms. Yeah.
Similar, right?
Yeah, I weigh 83 kilograms and I'm 177 centimeters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's the foot. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my max pull up right now, I think it's about 60 kilograms. I think that's what I could do. I don't try it much. Last time I did it was 55, but I got stronger. So I'm probably at 60 now. And I weigh 83. So you can see, like, you're able to do 1-arm pull up because you're able to do a very heavy pull up as well. And for the dip is crazy. 120 kilograms. It's very good.
Cheers, man.
There's people that does that for reps as well. I mean, you got some crazy guys out there. When my max has been 100 kilograms, I think now it's much low. That's the one thing that got lower, just because I don't train hard weighted dips a lot. But amazing numbers. So you have increased from your first competition to your second competition, your pull-ups, your weighted pull-up, and the other numbers too, I think. So what's your main way of progressing over time?
So obviously the key to lifting is progressive overload, right? That's like day one lesson when you start going to the gym, is progressive overload. Is you just need to do more over time, but it needs to be slow, small, incremental, manageable, realistic. And over time, it's adding up. But when it's like progressive overload, I don't just mean always putting more weight on. You can do that for a little while, especially when you're a beginner, but sometimes you need to look at other ways of progressing. So it might be like adding more reps, adding more sets, increasing the volume, decreasing the rest period. Maybe even if you're lifting the same weight, maybe with better control, or you're lifting it like the concentric part more explosively, that's still progression. So the exact way you get there doesn't really matter too much, as long as you're getting there. So if you just added 1 rep to 1 set in 1 session, and then the next time you add 2 reps to 1 session, as long as it's on that kind of upward trend, that's all that really matters. I still kind of like cycle my training, so I don't just progress like upwards forever and ever and ever. It's like you go up to a certain peak, and once you're not a beginner and you're kind of an athlete, any athlete in any sport does the same thing, right? They build up to a peak at a competition or something, and then after that sort of drop off and recover. So I did the same thing, kind of built up to that peak of that competition 2 months ago, And kind of now I'm in a bit more of a casual sort of way of training. I'm not trying to lift as heavy. I'm changing the movements around. So, because otherwise you just plateau, right? So it's like you build up slowly. What to do is also rotate different exercises around. So if I feel I've hit a plateau on a certain movement, I'll swap to a similar but different movement. So it might be, instead of doing, like, say I've plateaued on like weighted pull-ups, it's like, okay, I'll switch to chin-ups. And then maybe I can keep progressing from there, or I switch to wide grip pull-ups and I'm going to back the weight off because it's a much harder movement, but I can still work within that similar sort of rep range and continue to progress. And it's the movement patterns are close enough that they carry over.
Yeah, that's a good point to stick with. Like, when you change the exercise and you do wide pull-ups, you have to humble down and say, okay, this exercise is different, it's more difficult. I have to drop the weight in order to maintain a good form and execution, right, as well. And I think this is something that people don't understand when they train, especially with calisthenics. They might start, they want to increase, they want to progress in pull-ups, and you will see them maybe adding weight to their pull-ups, but starting breaking the form because they want to do the same amount of repetitions. But you don't have to do that. It's okay to reduce the amount of repetitions because you are doing something that is more difficult. So you are making progress, even though you're doing less reps. It's not all about the number of repetitions that you're doing. It's about, as you said before, these small changes that move the needle up, and that could be reps, but sometimes it's not reps. And that in calisthenics, sometimes is making the exercise more difficult by, for example, going from regular pull-ups to wide pull-ups. And even though you have to reduce the reps to change the exercise, you will see an overall progress in strength.
Yeah,
what I mean with that. Yes, exactly. What I mean with that is that at some point in the future, even though you don't do weighted pull-ups, you probably see your weighted regular pull-ups going up anyway because you've been training your pulling strength these other ways. So everything compounds and moves the needle up.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, the difference with calisthenics,
you said that,
touch on, is obviously, just the difference is, like, obviously when you change from movements, your leverage can decrease. So you can use that as a way of progression. Say, if I've plateaued on regular pull-ups, moving to a weighted pull-up, a wider pull-up, I don't need to add weight or add reps. I'm going down in terms of the overall, like, volume that I'm doing because it's a harder exercise, but the intensity is increasing, and that's still progressing in a way, right? And I follow, I suppose, what might be a more traditional powerlifting style of training, you like Western periodization, if you want to be technical, from moving from typically higher reps as you increase into lower reps for a peak, basically for a competition. And then you go back. That is quite an old style of training, but it's still quite effective. It's just that I apply it more to calisthenics rather than powerlifting now.
Yeah. Yeah, see, so that's your cycling strength and hypertrophy and more endurance this way. Yeah. I like to keep everything within the program. So I don't like to cycle, but rather so what I do is that I will have, for example, my first exercise is more sub-maximal, maximal stimulus. So within the three sets of 3 repetitions, let's say. And what I do, I let it naturally become a more sub-maximal hypertrophy stimulus, right? Increasing the volume over time. So that's what I do. I let the stimulus move naturally between lower rep and higher intensity to higher rep, lower intensity. And then once I got to point where the volume is enough, so what I do is reducing the volume again and increasing the intensity of the exercise. So I do cycle as well, but I kind of let it happen naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if you're not focusing on a peak for a specific time, it makes sense to do
No.
that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're not
I
got a
never do that. Yeah.
competition on this day. You're just letting your body kind of ebb and flow, through your
Exactly.
training as it would be. Yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But do you do
Absolutely.
like a similar thing, talking on that with like the structure of your training session? Like where you would start with, say, the most difficult variation is what I would consider like the heaviest exercise, right? In powerlifting, it might be like you do your heaviest reps first. In calisthenics, it's like you pick the most difficult, the most intense, or the most technical exercise first, and then progress through the session into kind of easier, higher rep kind of things.
Yeah, definitely. Like, so what I do is I try to kind of keep it simple because calisthenics has got so many different movements. So
Definitely.
I try to give it an approach that is fairly simple, meaning that I keep my focus on two main movements, two main skills for both for push and pulling. Like let's take pulling as an example. My main movement would be weighted pull-ups because I want to increase it so I can get to my one arm pull-up. And then the other main movement would be the front lever pull-ups, right? So, and so I have two workouts. So one workout is focused on the weighted pull-ups as a main exercise. The other workout is focused on the front lever pull-up. So I start with again, as I said, 3 sets, 3 repetitions, and my goal would be bringing that 3 sets for 3 repetition up to 5 reps, so 3 sets of 5 before increasing the intensity. And then I actually do not stay on the same movement pattern and then decrease the intensity throughout the workout. I actually mix the thing. So if my first exercise is weighted pull-ups and we're doing the day where that's my focus, my second exercise is actually a front lever exercise. But of course, I'm going to choose a variation that allows me to do at least 6 reps, right? So for example, what I'm doing right now is weighted pull-ups, and then I do front lever raises. If you don't know front lever raises, you're hanging from the bar with the straight arms and you're pulling
your body as well, yeah.
This way. And then my third exercise is going to go back to something more similar to the weighted pull-ups, and I do pull-ups, chin-ups. I do chin-ups, side-to-side chin-ups. So wait and move to the side. All right. And so I would do the same thing in my other pull day, when instead of having the focus with my vertical pulling with weighted pull-ups, I have horizontal pulling with my front lever pull-up, which I'm doing in the straddle position right now. And my second exercise would go back to that to the vertical pull. So I do explosive pull-ups. And I think this is a very mixing the movement pattern. I think it's a very effective way to go because otherwise it's difficult to progress.
Yeah, I find you tend to burn out very quickly if it's just doing those same movement patterns over and over and over again. But if you're still working the same muscle groups, just in a slightly different way. I think you're going to progress for longer probably doing that than you are if it's just weighted pull-ups every single session. You're going to hit that plateau within a few weeks probably.
Exactly. Yeah. I think the point I'm missing and want to make is that if instead of doing weighted pull-ups and then let's say normal pull-ups, you do which are both vertical movement. You do weighted pull-ups and then you do a front lever variation, which is more horizontal pulling. What you're doing is that you're using different muscles, so you're kind of fresher fresher in doing that horizontal movement rather than do another vertical movement.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes it more effective over time. So the question I have for you, so usually I keep these 30 minutes live, so we still have some time. And I think what I want to navigate is, because you're coming from powerlifting and then you're moving to calisthenics, what do you think are the difference that you kind of have had to recognize and change in your training between using weights and training with calisthenics, your own body weight?
So obviously there's a lot of similar principles, because building strength is the same. Like, your body doesn't know the difference in the resistance between doing it's all just resistance to your body. But with calisthenics, so like going from one progression to another can be a huge jump sometimes, right? But, you know, if you want to increase your bench press and you add like 1.5 kilos, that's a tiny amount of progression, right? But on going from like tuck planche to a straddle planche is huge. There's a massive difference in intensity between those two movements. So I think for me, rather than progressing, you know, you're doing, I don't know, sets of 5 on your bench press, and then you're adding 1.5 kilos or whatever each month, and continuing doing sets of 5 like that you might do in powerlifting. In calisthenics, it's like, okay, maybe I'm doing tuck planche holds for like 30 seconds, and then I switch to straddle holds, and now I can only hold it for like 5 seconds. Like, the difference between the two is huge, but you still need to work a way of progressing that. So it might be, okay, I can only hold it for 5 seconds, but I'm going to work on doing like 10 sets of 5 seconds, and then slowly increasing it that way. So you just have to kind of manage the way that progression is. It's not quite so linear and quite so slow. Sometimes you're taking bigger jumps, but having to drop like your volume way back to continue to keep progressing. So that's it. I mean, also powerlifting is quite technical with your technique and things, but calisthenics is way more so. Like, and you're developing strength in kind of quite weird positions. So like in powerlifting, everything is pretty much like locked back with shoulders, like squats and bench press are both that same position with like your scapula locked back and retracted. Whereas in a lot of calisthenics movements, it's the exact opposite. It's hollow body. Everything is forward, right? In a planche or anything like that, you're pushing everything forward. So the body positions are very different. It took quite a while to do that and to realize that, to develop that kind of mobility. Also, the stress on your body is kind of different. In powerlifting, it's very heavy spinal loading, and you need to pay attention to that. In calisthenics, it's more like shoulders and biceps. I think especially there's a ton of tension, so you really need to look after your joints and just program sensibly, so you're not overtraining those muscles and those movement patterns. You've also got way more variety. You know, in powerlifting, your big 3, and you may do variations of those, but in calisthenics, the sky is the limit for what you can work on and what you can build up to, really. And you've got so many different variations and exercises that you can use to get there. There's more than one way to get there and to build strength, and you've got unlimited, you know, exercise options when it comes to calisthenics.
Yeah, that's true. Do you find it more motivating and stimulating than powerlifting? You like it more?
Absolutely, yeah. Because I think, you know, having done that for many years, I'm kind of bored of it. I'm kind of burnt out of it. Like, I still like doing squats and stuff like that, but there comes a time when you just get a bit fed up of it, and having that new novelty of a new way of training and a new thing to focus on, and seeing new progress after I've been training for so long, but suddenly making improvements, even if it's small, it's great. It's motivating. It makes you want to hit the gym, and it makes you want to train hard, and you want to achieve these movements. And I think for guys our kind of body weight to be able to do some of these movements, it's just awesome when you see like a bigger dude doing some crazy stuff. Calisthenically, often you see the tiny little gymnast guy, which is still impressive, but yeah, I think when you see a dude like 90 kilo plus holding a full planche, like, that's just sick, you know?
It's crazy, yeah, absolutely, man. And all the time I go to a calisthenics park, people think that I'm a bodybuilder, you know, and I'm not going to be able to do anything there. And then they kind of always ask me questions because they're shocked that I actually be able to do some calisthenics movement. It just takes a little bit more thinking for us that we are heavier. But honestly, I think that, of course, if you're lighter, you might be able to try some things and just make it happen. But I think it's still a wrong way to approach calisthenics. You know, if you would be doing so much better with the proper workout plan. Even though there are some super crazy calisthenics athletes that all they do is they go to the park and they try things, and they eventually become super strong. But because, as you said,
out there, you know, who just triathleting for the first time and are amazing at it. But hey, not everyone's like that, you know.
Exactly. There's also the other side of the coin. I mean, I know many people who are very light, but they still don't have that easy progress with calisthenics. One of my clients actually, he weighs 70 kilograms, but his strength progress is very slow, even though he has a good workout plan with me, but it just takes more time. So strength is also genetic. But I wanted to add the last thing about the technique, as you said. In calisthenics, you do have to kind of put an extra focus on the execution. And one of the reason why you have is also because when you're using weight, you can go easily into muscular failure. Like when you can achieve failure just bringing your muscle to absolute failure, which you can do in calisthenics as well, but you have to be more careful on what's happening to your technique, because in calisthenics it's not like as you said, doing a squat, you have a lot of pressure on your spine, so you really need to maintain your form stable and strong. In calisthenics, that doesn't happen. So while you're doing a push-up, you might start swinging your ass up and down and using keeping, and you don't have that risk of breaking your back. But you need to be careful that you are kind of lying to yourself. You probably reached already failure 10 reps ago, and you're just cheating your way up to extra 10 reps. So I think in calisthenics it's important to find a balance between muscular failure and technical failure. And you can find a balance. I think like few things that you can do. For example, in calisthenics, if you want to get closer to muscular failure, is doing negatives. Like if you do negatives, you make sure that you're going through the full motion of the movement, and you're doing it with proper form, because you're doing the negative, rather than struggling your concentric park with the weird movements that all you're doing is wasting energies, right? And the other things that people can do in order to achieve muscle failure without breaking the technique, I don't know if you use this one, but I love it sometimes to use it, is the stop and go. Stop and go. So when I feel like, so it really works. It works very well. It works well at higher intensity and lower intensity. But basically, what you do is, let's say you have to do your last set of 5 reps, and you get to your 4th, and you know that it's just not going to happen. You just stop for 10, 15 seconds, and that allows the creatine phosphate to replenish a little bit in the muscle. And more often than not, you're able to add that extra 1 or 2 repetitions. So I do.
Pause, right? That's what I would call it. Rest pause training.
Yes.
That's just what I know it
exactly.
as. Yeah, same thing.
All right, Mike. Yeah. So I think we covered a lot of cool things, and that's going to help some people to train better. We might get on a live again if we want to cover more stuff.
Anytime we can hit up nutrition and stuff. I like your take on like things. I agree with that.
So guys,
so we can go over that stuff sometime.
Absolutely. So if you have guys, the ones that are watching this live replay or live right now, you have extra questions, you can comment on the live and we can cover it another time. So thanks for coming, Mark. It's been amazing and interesting.
Thanks, fun.
You're a beast. See you soon. Ciao, ciao.
You take care, mate. Cheers.